Thank you. It's good to be with you today, and I'm sorry that the chief couldn't make it because there are a lot of really important issues that our community faces as far as public safety is concerned, and I know it's a concern of every citizen. So I'm not here to talk about public safety, though, but I think that what I am here to talk about are things that have a lot to do, thank you, Matt, things that have a lot to do with the future of our community and what kind of quality of life we are going to have for ourselves, for our children, and now what I think about is my two granddaughters. So let's start with a little bit of an introduction into what I do and why I'm here. And it goes back to this picture of the Solo Cup plant, Lily Tulip. The idea being that if a city like Springfield, back in soon after World War II, was interested in growing their community and creating jobs, what they would do is get together a group of leading businessmen, and they would start looking at prospective companies that they want to attract to the community. And so they get on a plane and go meet with the head of the company up in Duluth or Rochester or wherever they are, and they sell them on Springfield. And then after a little bit of negotiation and relationship building, lo and behold, there's an announcement, and a company builds a manufacturing facility or a branch office or something like that, and jobs are created, and it's a wonderful thing. That still happens, but not as much as it used to, because nowadays much of work can be done from anywhere. A lot of work is done over a wire, and so a lot of work ends up being done from home. And people have a choice where they can live. Another issue that we may be facing in the future, and I have no idea how soon, but we are seeing a lot of people move from the coast to the Midwest. And they have various reasons to do that, but I personally believe, I don't know when, but I think that's going to only continue to increase with the trends that we're seeing on the coasts. Our community can and probably will grow, and place is what attracts people now, not just jobs. People go, particularly those people who can work anywhere they want to work. So place attracts people, people then attract the jobs, and jobs create the prosperity for a community. So place, then people, then jobs has replaced that notion of jobs, then people, and maybe place if we want to do it. And placemaking is what I am responsible for. Placemaking sounds kind of soft and squishy, and in some ways it is, but it is a field of discipline. Engineers, architects, landscape architects, planners sometimes practice in that subspecialty of placemaking. And there's even theorists and methodologies for successful and, frankly, unsuccessful placemaking. How did this come about as far as Springfield and Springfield city government is concerned? Well, the city council every year has a retreat, and they establish council priorities. They have 5, and they've renewed them from last year to this year, and right at the very beginning is quality of place. Now, the other ones are the ones that you'd kind of think that a city council would have, but what our city council believes in is that it's going to be really important for us to compete for residents and for workers and for jobs. And so place is one of the strategies in the competitive game to attract people and to grow a community. And so they defined what they meant by quality of place, and there it is: desirable, competitive, and economically vibrant. And so the challenge that they had, though, was that there was nobody on city staff driving to work every morning thinking about this place issue. Nobody working it all day. And so they said, what we need to do is bring someone on who has some experience in this and can focus on it. Well, and I was at a point in my career where I had gotten close to retirement, and so this was a second career opportunity for me to help the city with achieving some of these quality of place objectives. I'm not going to go through those. Those are on the city website if you want to look at them. So, to talk a little bit more in detail about what I do is I'm on the city manager's staff. I'm next door, my office is right next door to Taj, who is also on the city staff, the city manager's staff. I have no other personnel, meaning that what I do is work with every other department. My work is inherently collaborative, and frankly, I never want to have a department. I never want to have employees. That's one of the reasons why I took this job, was that I didn't have to have employees to do the work. And it, forces me to work across the system, which in an organization of more than 2,500 employees is quite a bit of work. But the second thing is the focus is on the work. I'm not supervising anybody. I'm not doing any sort of personnel activities and disciplining and mentoring and all those kind of things. I am actually doing the work, and that's something that I enjoy immensely. Here's what I'm involved in. I'm in the startup of every capital project. That could be a pipeline. Now, there's not going to be much in that pipeline project as far as quality of place, but it might be something where it comes up out of the ground, and so I have to review that and see the impact that it makes on the city, on the cityscape. I'm involved in project placemaking reviews. What I'm looking for is that projects, when you think about them from the large scale, are catalytic and synergizing. They make things happen not just for the project itself, but things around them. I'm looking for things that at the human scale, they are authentic and they're human sensitive, meaning that crosswalks on a public street need to be straight, they need to be intuitive, and they need to be accessible. I can't imagine what it must be like being sight impaired and not knowing why this sidewalk zigzags before you can cross the intersection. And so I'll come back to that notion in a little bit. And just generally, I'm supposed to raise the bar, contribute to increasing quality for all capital projects. I'm involved in creating plans and policies, and I do advocacy work. I consider what I'm doing this very second advocacy, and I do project leadership, and I want to show you some projects that I've been involved in. 2 years ago, the city set out on Forward SGF, the city planning effort. Every 20 years, every generation, we do a comprehensive plan, and that comprehensive plan becomes the document from which all physical decisions ultimately come up and out of. And so we are trying to finish that right now. We will probably be done with it next spring. You know what slowed us down. And so we're trying to gain that momentum back. It's been a terrific process. What we've done is identified several sub-areas within the plan that we've been studying. West Chestnut Expressway is one of those. That trip from the airport into the city could use a little bit of enhancement if we're trying to make first impressions as a community. And so we identified actually City Council identified West Chestnut Expressway as one of the areas that we are focusing on. And we are looking for opportunities for reinvestment and redevelopment in that corridor. And the plan will indicate some ways in which that can happen in an orderly and sustainable way. We're also looking at the route that first-time visitors from St. Louis take if they follow the directions on their phone to Missouri State University. Imagine some parents bringing their daughter down to look at Missouri State University. They've never been to Springfield before. Their app is going to take them down 44 to 65 to Chestnut Expressway, and then down Traffic Way to National and to the university. Well, Traffic Way is, well, let's just say it's kind of a Swiss Army knife of different uses. A well-used and dull in places Swiss Army knife. But places like that have huge upside potential for redevelopment, for reinvestment. And so this is one of the areas that we're looking at. Another area that we're looking at is right here, North Glenstone. North Glenstone from Kearney to I-44. What's interesting about this corridor is it's kind of typical of these older developed commercial corridors that were once state or federal highways, but they've just been urbanized over the years, and they need to be cleaned up. They need to be ordered, they need to be made a little more pedestrian friendly and maybe a little bit more relevant to the 21st century. What's interesting about this corridor is that it has a gateway from I-44, an implied one anyway, and it houses over half of the hotel rooms in Springfield. So this is a huge visitor area, and people's impressions of Springfield are almost always made on the public right-of-way, but especially in an area like this. And so the plan is going to have some recommendations for that. And then another area that we're going to be looking at will be Lake Springfield. Lake Springfield and I are the same age, and for 64 years, the Lake Springfield and the power plant there served the citizens of Springfield very well. But last year, at the end of the year, they went in and turned the power plant off. And so that facility and the 2,000 acres around it are surplus. So the question is, what do we do with Lake Springfield for the next 64 years? And that is one of the questions that the plan poses. It doesn't have a definitive answer because that's going to take a while to figure out what that should be. But we are starting on it now. So more information on Forward SGF can be found on the internet at forwardsgf.com if you want to know more. I want to give you an update on Grand Avenue Parkway. Grand Avenue Parkway was funded by a $21.6 million grant from the Federal Highway Administration to Springfield. Senator Blunt was very instrumental in getting the city that grant. The idea would be that it would be a parkway from Wonders of Wildlife, one of our largest most significant tourist destinations, and downtown Springfield, which also sees a lot of tourism. And so I'm happy to tell you that the public engagement that we received during this project, which was the first thing I worked on when I started 2 Marches ago, the public engagement was incredible. I am sure we have over 2,000 citizens directly involved in input on the project. That especially included the people in the West Central neighborhood area, but also people all around the community. And last week we finally selected a design, and so I'm here to share some of it with you. The big idea is that it being Grand Avenue Parkway, that parkways from other communities were looked at as models. And I think you see kind of a common theme here. It's a lot more trees than what we're used to seeing on our thoroughfares in Springfield. And so the proposal has almost 300 new shade trees being planted along Grand Avenue. And the idea mainly is that we will take this road that is 4 lanes wide, essentially, take it down to 2 of the narrowest lanes we can get by with to slow down the traffic, and then use what we gain back from all those traffic lanes and use that for primarily pedestrians and landscaping, and to make a place. So this is the view, the future view of what you will see at Grant and Portland. This is looking south from Grant. Grant Avenue is right over here, and then this is Portland that we're getting ready to cross. And this is one of the key features, is a 10-foot wide bike and pedestrian trail on the east side of the road. And that at every crossing, there's no zigzagging. It's a straight sidewalk that just crosses the cross street, and that it crosses at sidewalk level. There will be a speed table like there is on St. Louis across from University Plaza Hotel that'll slow down traffic, but it'll also make it easier for pedestrians and people on bikes to cross the street. This is a view at Grand Street. Again, we're looking south, and this building in the background does not exist, but it does show the scale and type of development that is possible and is in fact prescribed for that area. In addition to the construction of this parkway, we were also able to plan for a new zoning of that whole area from Fast Night Park North to promote development that was focused on the parkway. And then at Parkview High School, on the south end of campus, we're proposing a roundabout that will have 9 different lanes of traffic touching it. So it's going to, it's a rotor that's really working hard. And one of the best things about it is it feeds into the student parking lot, and so no longer will students have to take left turns in or out of the parking, which is a good thing for 16-year-old drivers, I think. The other thing that happens is that the portion of Grant Avenue that you drive past Parkview has chain link fences on both sides and parking lots beyond the chain link fences. But by narrowing those traffic lanes, we end up with something that's much more landscaped and much more of an addition to the park. So here's that roundabout. We don't have in the budget this statue of the Parkview Viking, but we see this as an ideal community project for the Parkview community to raise the funds for that. And we've already heard some people say, I'm interested in helping to get that accomplished. This is that view looking north on the parkway. I wish I had a current view, but if you're driving north on the parkway and the student parking is over on the right side, the athletic complex parking, the Kennedy Stadium parking is over on the left side, you'll see how transformed this area is simply by a lot of landscaping. Then this is a plan for the corner of Mount Vernon and Grant. This is kind of downtown West Central. It's already somewhat of a commercial area, but the idea here is that it would be even more commercialized as far as neighborhood commercial, the kind of services that residents need and they can walk to. And then again, the parkway continues. And then finally, this at the north end, just south of Walnut, a gateway. There's also one down at the south end near Sunshine, that some sort of gateway structure that would indicate Grant Avenue Parkway to be known as Springfield's Green Street. But it's more than a street project. Yes, there are going to be transportation improvements, particularly on the pedestrian and bike side. But we're also doing economic development strategies, we're looking at quality of life efforts, and we're looking at especially community revitalization initiatives in a neighborhood that could really use it. So we've done the rezoning along Grant Avenue from Fast Night Park up to downtown. And more information on that can be found at grantavenueparkway.com. The third project I want to talk about is a big public works project downtown, and this is in that valley between the Idea Commons, which is on the left side of the screen, and Brick City, that's that area where Missouri State University is expanding into, and then downtown is on the right side of the screen. And Jordan Creek is actually in this picture. The site that we're talking about is these 2 blocks from Boonville to Campbell to Maine. And they're about the size of 4 Park Central squares put side by side. And there is a creek in this picture. It's running right underneath Water Street. And what happened was, about 100 years ago, the Jordan Valley experienced incredible flooding. And the city fathers at that time thought that the best way to contain the flooding was to simply, literally contain it in a tunnel. And so this picture is of a bridge that is underneath Campbell that was there before the tunnel was built. But there is a 2-celled tunnel. These are big enough to drive vehicles through if you could get a vehicle down there. And this tunnel was developed to carry the storm water so it wouldn't impact the buildings like it did in that picture. But what has happened in the past 100 years is that the whole watershed area has been developed. And when I say the whole watershed area, here's downtown, right here in Jordan Creek, and this is the watershed. This is Kearney Street up here, and there's a north branch of Jordan Creek and a south branch that goes east. And so the whole area from Kearney Street basically to 65 and south to just around Chestnut Expressway, that whole area drains into downtown. And so as the areas upstream have become more and more developed, more and more asphalt, more and more paving, the rush of water coming down Jordan Creek and into downtown has increased substantially. And so that means every 5 or 6 years, there's a flood that makes the news. That's not to say that's the only flood, that's the flood that makes the news. So the idea is that there will be a series of big stormwater detention ponds built all along Jordan Creek, with 2 large ones downtown, but then 4 others upstream, just to hold some of that water back and slow it down. Our plan then is to consider this not just as a stormwater project, but also in the downtown portion of Jordan Valley Park. You may remember Jordan Valley Park. The idea has been around for more than 20 years. It's the idea that there would be a West Meadows, which is primarily open space, and then the east side of Jordan Valley Park, which builds up to the stadium, the Hammonds Field. And so these most urbanized areas would be this park right in here that would be opened up and naturalized. The area around the old Meeks warehouse, the city has purchased that, and that will be another stormwater detention pond. So this is the model of what it looks like. We have a contractor on board. He's doing the cost estimating so that we can make sure that we bring the project in on time and on budget. And then construction will begin sometime next spring and will be finished sometime in 2024. That will be about the same time that the Grant Avenue Parkway finishes. It also connects to a renovated Founders Park and the 404 North Jefferson, where the Meeks warehouse is across from the E-Factory downtown. So more information on that is with renewjordancreek.com. I'm happy to respond to any questions. I'm happy to stay after to visit with anyone who'd like to visit, but I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to offer you a glimpse of some things that we're working on, and so that you can be thinking about the future of Springfield. I work for you, and if there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. Thank you.